Welcome back. In this video, we're going to go over how to automate sending in-house sign documents. So in the previous video, we went over how to automate creating a document, and we have a function that is connected to an API. And here we have this function that basically creates the document. But in this specific case, we decided to not send the document after it's created. So if I were to, let's hop back over here and just look for our function. Just search for, I guess, sign. Here we are. So our function creates a document, but we have it set to not send our document. So our document is created as a draft document. If I switch over to the development environment, I can see a document that is left here as a draft document. So what we want to do now is basically create an automation or an API or a way to automate sending this document. You might have multiple workflows. You might have a workflow where maybe a document is created, and then in a different action, you might want to then send said document, right? So whatever the case is, you have that flexibility to not have to send a document immediately after it's created. You get to decide when you want to send the documents according to whatever your workflow is. All right. So let's go ahead and write a function and then connect it to an API. And we're going to use that API to test sending our document. So we've gone ahead and we've created this document using this API and an automation function. And then we're going to write another function to basically send documents. I'm going to jump into the function builder. I'm going to say send in-house sign test. Test sending in-house sign documents. Okay, we're gonna create this. We're gonna give our logic a workflow name of logic. So the first step, I'm just gonna type sign, and as you can see, we have a bunch of automation options, and I'm just gonna pick send in-house sign document. So here we have to provide the document ID. It's practically the only required field. Since we're going to be testing this from an API, our document ID will be in our request body parameter. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to map into it. So I'm just going to call this variable send response. Come back in here and map into our request body, so parameter all caps, request body, and I'm gonna call it document ID. All right, and then in the next step, all I want to do is return the send response. Now there's one thing to note in our API. Let me go ahead and save this real quick, and I'm just gonna open up another tab and jump into our current API that we use to send documents. Here it is. So our API is currently exposed to the public. So meaning that I don't have to provide an API key or an authenticated user, but in-house sign documents, whenever we're using an automation, requires a valid sender. So because of this, we need to use something else. We need to use system users. So if I jump out of here and go into the system users, there are a bunch of options. I see that I have one here called Danny Joe that has in-house sign developer access. This just means that this user can send and can write and read in-house signed documents in a non-production environment. So we're going to go ahead and use that user's access. I'm going to add another step and rearrange my steps. And then I'm going to just say system, and the name of our function step is get system user API key. I'm going to call this variable API underscore key, and I'm going to select Danny Joe, and right here I'm going to reference that variable API key. Awesome. So I'm all set. I can deploy this function, jump back into my API. I'm going to add another endpoint. I'm going to call this endpoint send. It's going to be a post request. So for this endpoint, what we're going to do here is that we are going to connect it to our function. So send Inhouz sign test, select the function, and what else? I think that is it. I'm going to save this. I'm going to deploy this current version to the development environment because we are doing our testing in dev. Copy that dev URL, open up Postman, open up a new tab. It's going to be a post request, paste that in there, HTTPS, okay. Switch to the body, and we do need one field called document ID. And I am going to get that from the application. So here's the document that we created, and it's not sent, it's currently in draft. I'm going to get that ID. So ideally in your workflow, you're going to create a document, you're going to save the metadata of that document, like the document ID, in your database, right? And then if you wanted to, let's say, send that document, cancel that document, any of the automation steps that you want to do, you can always initiate it using this document ID. All right, so I'm gonna go into Postman, but one thing that I skipped over, right, is that you can also automate scheduling. So you can decide to schedule this document. You can pick a precise date and time. That might be another use case for why you don't want to send your documents immediately. Let's just imagine a workflow where someone comes to your website or something, and or they sign up for one of your services, and maybe it's like off hours, and you decide, okay, based on this person's time zone, based on this person's location, right, let me go ahead and create the document, right, and schedule it to maybe get sent to them at, let's say, 8 a.m. in the morning, their time zone, something like that. You could take this to whatever logical end you want to take it to. All right, so I'm going to jump back in here, paste that document ID, and send. All right, so it's doing this thing, it's sending, and we get that success message true. Now, if I go back into the Inhouz sign, I'm going to refresh the page, go back into that dev environment, and now our document, right, has been sent. Okay, and I have received the document. Okay, so that's it for this video. That's it on automating the sending of Inhouz sign documents. All right, that's it. I'll see you in the next one.